Yo, that's your boy Tim, aka T.O. Speaks.
And it's your girl Yami, aka Yams B. San, and you're now tuned into
Love and Theology.
I know I've questioned many things in this world, but I never had to question your love. So I know one thing's for sure. I can put trust in a real love, your love.
For every mom who ever missed a meal so they would have enough to let their babies eat. Fathers who grind every day to provide more than good advice. Charlie Sheen.
But yo, we're just so glad that y'all decided to rock with us one more week. You know, we just out here just trying to, put out content, keep stuff going. So we just really appreciate y'all rocking with us.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and tell the whole wide world where you can find us here. And if you have questions or things you think you want us to talk about, email us at loveandtheology@gmail.com.
At gmail.com. Yo, we just hope we just give you some content. Y'all have anything that y'all would like for us to talk about? Hit us up. That's what you just said.
Yeah. Testimony time.
Testimony time.
Oh, my testimony is, I've been started back a new job, so everything's just been going good. I'm just happy that God, that God has been gracing me through this situation, through this transition. So that's my testimony. God is good. He continues just to flow and grace me. So that's my testimony. What's your testimony?
I'm actually proud of Tabitha, who got really very good grades for this last semester. And y'all know that she was in the hospital for a period, and, she had to do some catching up. But when I tell you the girl excelled, she really excels. Like, they don't do ABCDs, E, F, G, or whatever. They do numbers. And for a lot of her classes, especially in language arts, or reading and all that stuff, which, coming from the pandemic, was a very hard thing for her. She wasn't, I think she was reading below the standards coming from the pandemic, and now she's the top reader. She's reading books that she should be reading at the end of her grade level, and she's making the highest marks. So I'm really proud of her. And we had to do a lot of work, honestly. So I'm really proud of the work she put in and the dedication she's put in for herself. So that's a testimony to me.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into the topic. So we're gonna talk about self-doubt. Like the things that's caused. And the reason I was thinking about this topic, because I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they was talking about, walking to this new season, but they was doubting their self, right? They was doubting their capabilities to do something that they have been known to do very well, but since it's something new, something that they haven't done in a long time, they begin to doubt. So instead of saying everything why they can do it, they begin to say why it might not work. So what do you think? What do you think self-doubt come from? Why do we have this self-doubt sometimes?
I don't know. The conversation about ego keeps coming up in different things. I saw a post from Brene Brown that talked about how it was a negative persona that I can't think of it, but its root was in ego. Mm-hmm. And I wonder sometimes if our self-doubt is rooted in our negative self-talk, but also our ego. I don't want to fail. Things like that, I feel like come from ego, and often what people are going to perceive about us, or just insecurities that we may have. And maybe ego is too hard, but that's a thought. What about you?
Yeah, no, I believe that too. I believe self-doubt comes from, instead of looking at your capabilities, why you can do it, we begin to look at everybody else and be like, dang, I can't match up to that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we begin to build this wall, and I believe by brick we build a wall. One brick is, I'm not good enough. The next brick is, man, I don't deserve to be here. The next brick is that, just these different bricks, right? Each brick is something else that you think in your mind, right? And then that wall becomes so big that you oftentimes can't knock the wall down. Somebody else have to come and speak life into you in order to move that wall, to move you into your next. So I just noticed that a lot of people deal with it. And then it's probably nothing wrong with even having self-doubt, right? It's just say if it's nothing wrong with it. But it's the part where you allow self-doubt to leave you stagnant, to freeze you from moving on. That's the problem, I believe. When you allow self-doubt to make you not want to move into your next that has been laid out for you. That's the biggest issue. It's not the biggest issue that you might be scared or fearful for what you're walking in. It's when you allow that fear, that self-doubt to cripple you, to paralyze you.
I think there are plenty of examples biblically where there were people who had self-doubt. Moses comes to mind initially. Like, Moses was so doubtful of his capability that God had to permit his brother Aaron to walk alongside him to audibly speak what Moses was incapable or thought he was incapable of speaking. And then I never remember if it's the Elijah or Elisha's, whichever one of them went into a cave and was just hollering at God and saying, God, don't nobody love you, don't nobody serve you, they gonna kill you. You know what I'm saying? When God had told him to go travel across to 7,000, whatever,
right.
people and speak what he had spoken. And that was after he had done something powerful. Elijah or Elisha, who I never remember, but one of the the prophets, just got done, proving, or God proved through this vessel how powerful Yahweh was before him by and if you don't know the story, this story of Jezebel and Ahab, and they had been promoting their gods and their abilities and all of that, and basically Jezebel told Elijah or Elisha, whatever, let's compare. Let's see what your God can do compared to my God, and like have all her people conjure up their gods, and their gods weren't able to compare to Elijah or Elisha's God. And after that, after God, Yahweh proved themselves to Jezebel said, I'm gonna kill you. So Elijah or Elisha ended up going into a cave hollering about whatever. And I wonder sometimes if it's crazy how self-doubt creeps up in this way. You can have a masterful moment, a beautiful moment where Yahweh shows up on your behalf, and after the high of that moment goes down, the enemy can creep in on you and pull you into self-doubt, when in all actuality, all the things, especially for those who are those of us who are believers, should have all the things that we should have confidence in, the things that happen. The way that we should have confidence in the things that happen in our lives are not because we do things, but that God does things through us. And self-doubt in a lot of ways is the ideology that we cannot achieve a thing. And if we profess to believe God, it's not about what we can achieve, it's about what God can achieve through us.
Right, because God is going to definitely use us to get glory out of his life. I think that's really good, because even when Jezebel, like I said, conjured up the gods, right? It wasn't about what Elijah or Elisha could have done. It was about, like I said, what God was going to use through them, so his glory can be manifested through them, right? So that's even like with I think King David, everything that God did to defeat the giant and all that, it was for God's glory. You know what I mean? David couldn't have done it without God, right? But see, David had something that most of us say we have, but we won't walk into it. David knew his God. He believed his God. He knew that God was going to operate through him, right? So that gave him the courage to do it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
They gave him the courage to walk into it, to do it. So that self-doubt was eliminated once he knew who he was in God. And oftentimes what I noticed too, when this guy I was talking to, is that he began to say that if it's something new, oftentimes we have the courage to do something new, but why is it that when we got to go back and do an old thing, that doubt creeps in when we already have achieved that old thing? You ever notice that? Like, man, I got to do this again. It's like playing a football team twice. We always say this thing, playing football, it's hard to beat the team. It's hard to beat the team twice. Wait.
Because I don't football athletic analogies don't apply to me, because your girl was never athletic.
It wasn't to apply. It was just for you to listen.
I hear you, but you said you feel what I'm saying, and I'm like, I don't feel what you're saying.
I mean, if you would have listened, you would have felt it.
Okay. And the person I was talking about was Elijah. I had to look it up because that name was killing me.
Elijah.
It was Elijah that went before Jezebel and was struggling. But your analogy about playing the same team twice.
Yes, we always say it's hard to beat a good team twice, right? But why is it hard to beat a good team twice? Because you've already seen it before, right? So why is it always hard? I would say that it's easier sometimes to walk into something with confidence or something new, right? But sometimes it's hard to walk with confidence if you got to repeat a thing. That's when you have self-doubt.
I think that's where ego goes, but I think it's both ways. I disagree with you in that sometimes walking into a thing for the first time doesn't create self-doubt. Like, because I think self-doubt is rooted again still in ego. But I do agree with you that sometimes when you face something again, the fighting that you're experiencing is a fight with, can I do this again? Or what are people going to say if I can't do it again? Or, right. Whatever that is. And that's just my perspective too. So
I believe that's why oftentimes like people don't want to do something great, because if you begin to be great or walk into your greatness, right, you have to keep, in our minds we think that we got to keep on repeating the same greatness. We won't allow people to see us fail, right? But I think in this so-called failure, when you allow people to see it, it's not a failure, it's a learning process. You see what I'm saying? So most people just stay ordinary, right? Instead of do something great because they're scared of allowing people to see them fail. So there again too, that's a different form of self-doubt. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I'd rather not be great. I'd rather not have people say that I'm doing something good, because I don't want to have to keep it up. It's easy for me to just stay the way I am, so nobody expect anything out of me.
What are some ways that you feel like you've experienced self-doubt?
Man, I experienced self-doubt a lot. Even like I said, even with, like, for me playing football, I know when I was playing football, no matter how good I was, and I studied and I did film, I would always think that the person on the other side of the field was better than me. You see what I'm saying? But in that moment, it made me work harder, and I would always win. It was through that doubt that made me not take my opponent for granted, if that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? Because I doubted my ability, so it made me work hard. I never got comfortable in my ability. So self-doubt with that. Self-doubt with school, man. I was like, man, I always failed at school. So with me going back to college, I never failed, but I was never one of the better students at school. So with me going back to school, I just knew for a fact that I was going to fail. Everything I was talking myself out of going back to school when God had already told me I need to go to school. Instead of me tapping into what God said, the voice of doubt was bigger than what God had told me to do. You see what I'm saying? So, but it wasn't because it was louder. It was because of what I focused in on. It was easy for me to focus in on the doubt and be like, I can't do it, and halfway not do it anyway, so no expectation would come. You see what I'm saying? No disappointment would come. But it was hard. So I made that voice louder, and I made God's voice in my life. You see what I'm saying? Because God was pushing me to something different. That voice of self-doubt wanted me to stay just where you at. Tim, just stay right here. Don't go to school. You'll be okay. You'll just be you, right? You don't got to experience hurt or failure. Just stay normal. So those are two of the most things I can think of right now. What about yourself?
Before you go into that, one of the things that I think whenever you mention the whole school thing, one of the things that, in my perspective, based off of, and it's limited, I wasn't there, I can't speak to all of it, but based off of your experiences with school, it's not that you were not the better student. I don't think much was expected of you. And I'm saying that from my experiences with, friends of mine who have played or who were athletes, for instance. There were student athletes, yes. They, did the combination of two. But oftentimes when people pigeonhole you or expect one thing of you, too, it plays on your ability to believe in yourself. And I also think that those can be roots of self-doubt as well. So oftentimes when I hear you say that, I think to myself, I wonder if someone expected more of you, or if you expected more of yourself, or if, who you thought you were supposed to be was wrapped up in, because who you thought you were supposed to be was wrapped up in football, or your identity was in football. You didn't think that there was anything beyond that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when you know better or when you're exposed to better, you do better. I
mean, I think that's true. I also think with me, I just didn't apply myself either,
Yeah, I'm saying
in that kind of way to be good, and on top of I had some learning disabilities I had to grow out of. You know what I mean? I dealt with those things growing up. You know what I mean? So, but I grew up out of them because I applied myself, but they were still there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when
they were still there,
when someone stigmatizes you. You know what I'm saying, or limits you, or reduces you to a thing, or pigeonholes you.
Right.
it causes you self-doubt. I think roots of self-doubt can be in those kind of situations because your only identity is based off of what you've been exposed to. So nobody says, nah, just because you have, you said a disability, right? You said a learning disability. Just because you have a learning disability doesn't mean that you can't, we just need to find a different way to do a thing, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But
so still, even like, I'll give you an example with Tabitha. Tabitha is left-handed. I don't know. Honestly, it wasn't until she was in I Am STEM and they were trying to help her write her numbers that I don't know if I thought about it. I just didn't think about it. But she was struggling with writing her numbers. And the reason why is because nobody said, you know, hey, you know what I'm saying, mommy and daddy are both writing with, you know, their right hand, and nobody exposed her to something different. And had it not been for an intervention, that could have been a handicap. And one of the things what I ended up doing every time we go into a new class, the first thing I say, hey, Tabitha's left-handed. So a lot of times if she's observing something that you're showing her and you are right-handed, or you don't think about the fact that she's left-handed, she's probably not going to see it the same way. Or being intentional about exposing, you know, Tabitha to or modifying how we teach her at home so that she can, you know, better grasp the information, or being sensitive to that kind of thing. So that's what I was saying in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense. I mean, I get that in the left-handed thing. We wouldn't never tap into the mistakes we was making by trying to show her, like, tying shoes. I used to try to show her how to tie shoes using my right hand when there was a big difference with the left hand, so it took her a long time to grasp it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like, what are some things that you felt like that caused self-doubt to you, that caused you to have self-doubt?
Anytime I have to preach, or anytime I say something theologically, anytime we do this podcast, there are self-doubts that creep in me, because it's very important to me not to be a know-it-all or to be the smartest person in the room, but to have competency in what I say. So and I'm always challenging myself to be better in that area, and oftentimes because people say things like, oh, well, she's smart, or, you know, whatever, and because oftentimes that was weaponized against me, especially as a kid, I internalize it in a way that creates self-doubt. And it's not, and honestly, I can't blame anybody else. It's because I'm internalizing it that way, because it had been weaponized most of my life.
And you say, like, being weaponized, like, speak on that, because I mean, maybe that could free somebody. Like, what does that look like? Weaponized. How can somebody be weaponizing by saying that you are smart? Like, what does that look like?
When they downplay it, it was like, oh, well, she's smart, or, you know, I can't say nothing to her because she always gonna challenge something that I'm saying. Or I used to have people taunting me, or pointing, or making their kids not like me because I was smart. A lot of times it shows up in how people, not how I present, but how people treat me. Like or jealousy creeps up.
So would it cause more like, now you're trying to dim your own light just so?
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like I very, very often, one of the reasons even now that I struggle in terms of speaking even at in the D-Men program, it's not because I don't think that I'm qualified or capable per se. It's because one, when people know that you're capable or competent, they use you. And then two, oftentimes I have been in situations where male, female, white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, whatever it was, provoked a feeling of jealousy from someone else. So I don't try to be the smartest person in the room. I don't try not to be myself. But oftentimes I have had encounters with people in multiple spaces that have used my intelligence as a way to be like, oh, you being too smart. You don't got to be smart all the time. Or, you know what I'm saying? You don't got to say things this way. You can say it this way. Those kinds of things.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So, yeah. So that makes sense. So, with that being said, I mean, that is actually a lot of layers to what you just said. You know, that could be like 4 or 5 different topics. And I believe that a lot of people deal with that kind of stuff, and just for you highlighting it, man. I mean, that's really good. Even when you say people would what you say, people would try to use you because you're smart. Like, what does that look like? Like they would ask you to do stuff.
Yeah, like instead of doing things themselves. You know what I'm saying? Which is probably why in part I'm more teacher based. I don't, even with Tabitha, there's an interdependence, not independence, but interdependence that I'm trying to develop in her so that she doesn't get caught up in a mentality that suggests that she can't do something. At least try. You know what I'm saying? To do something before you say I can't or I won't or I'm not capable of. You know what I'm saying? But oftentimes when people become lazy when they find someone else who they feel is more capable than them at doing a thing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, I was one of those people. Honestly, you know what I mean? So I see what you're saying. And with me being one of those people that might try to copy out somebody's paper, I didn't realize, that some people was bothered by that. You understand what I'm saying?
I never used to let nobody copy. But also I really didn't have nobody try. I wasn't always the smartest person in the room. That's the other part too. I'm not necessarily the smartest person in the room. I'm creative in the way I say things, but I also wasn't the kind of person that would let you cheat on me.
But I noticed something about you though. You all work most people.
I work hard.
You don't let if you're not the smartest person, you're not gonna let nobody outwork you.
No, I mean, and that's another thing. There's this mentality that because I present as intelligent that I don't work as hard. I have to work very tirelessly oftentimes, and a part of the way self-doubt creeps up on me is that if I don't feel like I'm not working as hard as I have had to do in the past, it means that it feels like I'm not going to accomplish whatever the goals are for.
But even with your work hard, one thing you do have is laser-like focus, man. You know what I mean? Most people don't have that. That's a gift you do have. Notice it about you. You have laser focus. When you focus in, you zero in. I can't focus like that.
Yes.
What do you mean by yes?
I mean,
I can't though. I mean, that's a gift. I admire that.
It's not that you can't. It's that it's a muscle that you haven't used.
I don't focus. I'm all over the place. I'm scatterbrained. You know what I mean? So I do 4 or 5 things at one time. You have a laser focus.
We're also learning to change our verbiage so that we don't say these things about ourselves, so that we can adopt. Or the only reason I'm challenging you on what you're saying. Only reason I'm challenging you on what you're saying is because the things that we audibly speak out about ourselves become the things that tell us or to create or uphold self-doubt. So when you say I'm not laser focused, I would rather say it's an area. I would rather you readjust your language to say that it's an area that I need to develop in, and then find tools that help me do that. That's
a good practice. But even with me, I understand who I am in that. So I learned how to navigate with who I am. You understand what I'm saying? So I can get things accomplished. I mean, I know it might not look as good, so I'm not too much worried about that part. I'll just was bring that up. You know what I mean? The difference between you and I. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So, but that's one thing you are really good at. You focus like no other. Too many people ain't gonna outwork you. If somebody give Yami a task and the task is not due till 4 months later, she gonna start working on that task time she get the task oftentimes. Right?
But it's only because I work hard. I develop principles.
And then you find a way to work from that time you get it all the way up to that 4 month mark. So I see you doing it, and then you refine it, you reworking it till you find a perfect product. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I will applaud you on. Like, man, if most people could have that type of focus, man,
I just want you to know that you're doing a version of the same thing that I told you.
I'm applauding you too.
No, I hear you, but I'm also saying that sometimes what they.
So you don't want nobody saying anything good.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that I'm being validated for my ability to produce in this sentence.
Oh, so you don't want to be? I guess because now you say I'm doing what I'm saying, so I would like to deal with that. So you don't want to. You don't want to be saying that you're doing something great?
No, I want you to let me finish talking so that I can tell you what I'm talking about. My self-doubt creeps in because I feel like I have to overproduce in order to accomplish a thing. So when I was telling you about how people would say, "Oh, you're smart," I feel like I would have to live up to that expectation and produce these things. So when I don't do that, I'm not working hard, I'm not, whatever, it feels like I'm underproducing, and then I can't meet those standards, and then I go into a cyclical cycle of self-doubt. So I'm not acknowledging, your validation for me. It's kind of one of those things where it also goes into my work product. It also is a part of how I interpret it in a way, and I said this a couple seconds ago about it. It's not other people, it's probably how I internalize it. But I'm saying that I internalize it in a way that says that in order for me to continue to be seen as successful in a thing or in multiple things, I have to overproduce. So that's what I was saying.
Okay, I understand that, but you were saying I was doing exactly what you said. And that thing that I was doing is a bad thing in your opinion. So I guess what I'm saying now is like, how would you like somebody to compliment you without you feel like now you got to keep on overproducing?
It doesn't have to. It doesn't. It goes back to what I said maybe a minute ago, which is that it's not about what you're saying. It's about how I'm internalizing. So the work that needs to be done is in how I'm internalizing. I did say that you are doing a thing, but I'm also saying that in terms of, I just told you that when people say this, it produces this feeling synonymously.
Okay, I guess when you brought up that point, it felt like you was almost pointing at me about what I was saying. That's why I said that.
I was using what you said. I was using what you said to also correlate with how I internalize that.
Right. I get what you're saying now, but I'm telling you how you said it at first.
No, I know.
You are doing the thing that I just talked about. So that's why I came back and said like, well, how would you like for somebody to compliment you so you want to feel like that? That's the reason why I said it, because
which is why
based on how you had worded.
Yeah, which is why I go back. Which is why I go back to, it's not just about what's being said, but how I'm internalizing it. Because you think it's a compliment, and it's not that I don't think it's a compliment. But when I hear it, something in my brain says, "Oh, you got to live up to this now."
Okay, so it goes back to the self-doubt then, pretty much, full circle. Okay.
Right.
But still, that's why I put it the way I said it though. Because if I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable in that space. That's why I asked you that.
No, I'm not. And it's not.
If there's a way to compliment you, or not, I say I just don't want compliments at all. Let me know, because I don't want you to feel like like I'm trying to put you in a box that you got to keep reinventing this same box, living up to the same box. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
but you heard me when I said that wasn't the case.
Right? No, I'm just going back.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we established that, baby.
No, I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure I understood. This is me clarifying that we're still on the same page in terms of that. I'm not now in terms of how I what gets me motivated. I'm not motivated by compliments or that kind of thing, but for whatever reason, those comments, not that I don't like them or whatever, I shy away from them because oftentimes it could lead to the jealousy that I was saying. So if somebody else hears you saying, "Oh, well, she's smart in this area," that kind of thing, and those feelings of having to overproduce, that creates self-doubt in me.
Oh, okay, I understand. Okay, I mean, I think that was really good. I think more or less, I think we all deal with those things in some kind of way. You know what's the saying, like, don't let your light dim. You know what I mean? Just allow other people around you to shine bright. I think that comes from that. Like, most people, like, I'm gonna dumb it down because they don't want to be noticed. They don't want to be called out. They just want to be normal. But what we have to realize, even if you want to be normal, you probably have been called to greater. And what we have to do is get into a position to be comfortable with being alone, or be comfortable with being different. You understand what I'm saying? I know it's hard because we all struggle with that.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's because it's not. For me, it goes through multiple layers. I've always been different. I got a different name. For most people, I have a different ethnicity. I have a different background. I'm different than my immediate family or in a scenario. So there are a lot of things coupled with those thoughts that, not that I reject, but I also have to kind of bite size. I have to process in chunks so that
Yeah, no, I get it. But I'm just saying though, like, I think it's the difference makers, like you or whoever, that changed the world. And you know what I mean? I'm not saying, when I say this, I'm not saying that it's hard, that it's easy to do. It's easier said than done. You know, but we have to get in a position that we comfortable with doing it. You understand what I'm saying? Like with me, I understand my lane. I had to get comfortable going back to who I am. I don't deal with many people, right? And I have to ask myself, like, why is that? Not because I'm a bad person, because most people I think seem to like me, right? But I haven't been called to commune with people all the time. You understand what I'm saying? And we have to get comfortable with that instead of trying to do something that we're not. You know what I mean? That we wasn't never called to do so. Because what happens is when we begin to fit ourselves in a space that we're never supposed to be in, that's when now you got self-doubt on top of uncomfortability. Mm-hmm. Now you're not comfortable in this self-doubt. You see what I'm saying? Right. So if you're going to have self-doubt, at least be comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And who you are. So
what's your theology?
My theology is this, man. Even when we deal with self-doubt, we all going to deal with some type of self-doubt, some form of self-doubt. We all going to deal with it. But don't allow that self-doubt to creep in to stop you from moving towards your destiny, right? I think self-doubt is a trick of the enemy, right? That begins to get into your mind, because it's not God to tell you can't do a certain thing, and he wants you to stop and be stagnant and not move forth, right? So don't allow self-doubt to paralyze you. Just keep on moving and begin to work through it. And acknowledge your self-doubt. Say, I don't feel comfortable in this area, but begin to work through it. Once you acknowledge it, that's how you begin to work through it, I believe. That's what's been helping me. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I believe. That's my theology. What's your theology?
I just think that sometimes learning, and maybe not all the time, but sometimes learning the root cause of these things can also help you to better process why you're doubting yourself as much, mm-hmm. you know? So like I said before about how, you know, I shy away from accolades just because I've been in circumstances where it made me feel different. And I didn't always want to be different. And I still kind of battle with how different or being different affects me. So learning that can help us not be tempted to fall into the trick or the trap set by the enemy, and kind of the tactics that may sabotage us from purpose. So.
Well, that's good. That's really good. So, hey, once again, we appreciate y'all for just checking us out and just spending this time with us, just having this conversation. And if you find anything that you liked about this episode, you know, just write it down, think about it, and hope that it can help you in some kind of way. That's all we want to do. Just have a conversation so we can help people. So,
don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the whole wide world where you can find us.
Thank you.
Bye.
I know I've questioned many things in this world, but I never had to question your love. So I know one thing's for sure. I can put trust in a real love, your love. Yeah.
For every mom who ever missed a meal so they would have enough to let their babies eat. Fathers who grind every day to provide more than good advice. Charlie Sheen, taking everything you gotta take to bring the bacon home and put it on the table. You are not forgotten. Legacies are made in our darkest hours. God is watching. Keep your faith. Don't bend, don't fold. There's a lyric I quote. Tell me trouble don't last always. There's a Christ I know who revives the soul of the one who lose their way. Pursue the one who promised us a peace of mind. I tried to fly high on my choice of vice, but then I found Christ was the road to life.
Many things in this world,